I'm here to talk a little bit about a pilot project that I did last year. It was a vocational veterans rehabilitation program that focused on training veterans as professional artists. But before I do that, I'm just going to tell you a little bit about my story. So as you may figure, the gentleman in camouflage is me a few years ago. I joined the Canadian Armed Forces as an infantry officer pretty much right out of high school. I decided to do so shortly after watching the events of 9/11 unfold. I thought that was going to be my life's work, but life took a turn. I lost 2 colleagues early on in my career. I struggled to make sense of their deaths. And by extension, I began to question my life's path. And I had friends that encouraged me that they should seek therapy. And I made an appointment, but I just didn't show up. I didn't feel as though that my problems were as big as the families that just lost their sons. So I checked out of my military career. I did the bare minimum. I declined training. I felt disconnected from purpose. And I had a friend one day in the mess. He suggested that I go work for a nonprofit that serves troubled youth. Sure, why not? It was not without trepidation, though. I didn't know if I had anything to offer these kids. I saw myself pretty much as a blunt instrument. So I went out. I taught them how to camp, canoe, and how to hike. And these kids, they pushed me. And to my surprise, I modeled patience back. And so I continued to help deliver programming, and including an art program. And I ended up meeting a NASCAD professor that was volunteering as a instructor for the program, and him and I made fast friends, and I found out that this was actually his second career. His first career, he actually planned raids for the FBI. And so I began to start to think that maybe I can do something different. So I found myself at a crossroad. Do I stay in the military or do I jump into civilian life? I chose to leave the military behind, and the transition was rough. I didn't stick the landing. I struggled with homelessness as well as unemployment. I felt like a failure despite being so successful before. Civilian employers didn't really know what to do with my skill set outside of jobs that required you to carry a firearm, and I wasn't really interested in that. So I was down, but not out. I decided to go back to school and gain some new experience. I said yes to everything. I was lost. I was trying to find my place in life. I even found my way at one point in time on Dragon's Den, because why not? And then I came across an English professor, and she suggested that I lead a writer's circle. So I did that, and I led a writer's circle for youth with a diagnosis of psychosis, and I loved it. And I found fulfillment in that work, and I really wanted to figure out how to make that a full-time job. I began to believe that maybe I was smart enough to reinvent myself. So I got an honors degree in psychology. I got accepted into a graduate program in Vancouver. I did a practicum in the downtown east side of Vancouver as well, and on an addictions team treating trauma as well. I returned to Nova Scotia. I wanted to work in the public sector, but at that point in time, no one was hiring, so I decided to apply to a few private practices. I got an interview. Interestingly enough, it was at the practice that I stood up 8 years prior. And the clinical director was the therapist that I was supposed to go to. I didn't bring that up in the interview, but I got the job nonetheless, and my practice filled quickly with veterans. My military background certainly helped. The veterans related to my experience, and there was also a significant amount of healthy envy with my ability to transition to civilian life. And they felt comfortable opening up about these struggles. And I eventually realized that the hardest part of treating trauma wasn't the actual symptoms of trauma. It was actually helping someone build a life afterwards. And so I decided to really think about, what do I want to focus on? If I had like a kind of a pie in the sky dream of, if I could do a vocational program, what would I focus on? And I kept on thinking about focusing on identity as well as problems with integration into culture. I did find some funding, and it was through the True Patriot Love Foundation, a sizable amount of money, but the issue is that it was art specific. So I didn't know anything about the arts, so I partnered up with a friend of mine, Jessica Wiebe, who is a artist, educator, and a combat veteran. And so we developed a 6-week intensive vocational program in the arts, and we focused on addressing issues with identity as well as integration into culture. And Jess also brought NAVSCAD on board, so the Nova Scotia College of Art and Design. And we started off with 7 people. They were all determined unsuitable by Veterans Affairs Canada for vocational rehabilitation as well as re-education. 4 completed all 6 weekends. 5 ended up actually, after the program, pursuing post-secondary, 2 of which are completing bachelor programs. And 1 ended up becoming a professional artist. So he's doing commission work, and he's also been recently interviewed by the Canadian War Museum. There were noted large improvements to psychological well-being. The veterans felt more connected, less isolated. There were increases in personal growth, as well as relationships and a sense of purpose, and some reported changes to identity. From a professional standpoint, I look at the program as a success. There are a lot of indications that we achieved what we set out to do for addressing problems with identity as well as integrating into a new culture. The program is currently on pause. I'm trying to find some funding to make another reiteration of the program. My dream would be to have all vocational programs for veterans to incorporate some aspects of addressing identity associated with, or correction, barriers associated with identity, as well as difficulties integrating into culture. And maybe there's some sort of use for on-ramping veterans into post-secondary. From a personal perspective, it was particularly meaningful. At one point in time, I was lost. The veterans that I help are mostly lost as well. And I understand them as a result of my experience. And I'm grateful that finding myself helped me find my life's work. And it's really nice when things come full circle. And that's my friend John. And it was a few months ago that he got married.